Welcome, everybody. I'm excited that we're restarting Webster Talks. The next time that we do this will be on campus, having this event on campus finally. So as an introduction, since we have a lot of new people, but I see several people that I've seen before at our talks, Webster Talks is an open platform for academic discussions on various topics concerning all aspects of life, but especially political, economic, technology, financial, and other important things that affect our lives in different ways. And it is an open platform, so not only Webster students are invited, really anybody who is interested is welcome to join. When these events are on campus, they are also welcome to join. So in case you have friends, colleagues, acquaintances who would like to visit a Webster talk, you can tell them that they can do that easily, no problem. So today we've got a speaker who is based in Tashkent, but has extremely vast experience of teaching and working around the world. And our acting Vice-Rector, Dr. Slobodan Pesic, will introduce him now.
Thank you, Malika. Welcome everybody again. It is my pleasure to be here and have an opportunity to introduce our speaker. With more than 25 years of combined investing, financial management, executive, administrative, and academic experience in financial analysis, trading, investment banking, financial risk management, and IT, Dr. Polimenis combines the analytical skills of a stellar academic background in financial engineering, trading tech, and machine learning for financial data, with hands-on, get-the-job-done attitude and superb technical presentation skills. Dr. Polimenis holds a PhD in finance from Wharton Business School at the University of Pennsylvania and Master of Science in Computer Science from the University of California, Berkeley. Professor Polimenis has been appointed as a Fellow for Research Excellence in Finance at Lehman Brothers, New York in 2000, a Dean's Fellow with the Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania, and a Regents Fellow for Distinguished Merit of the University of California, Berkeley, and Honorary Lifetime Member of Beta Gamma Sigma Society, Fellowship for Excellence in Engineering with Hellenic Technical Chamber, and the National Fellowship Foundation in Greece. As an executive, Dr. Polimenis has served as Executive Vice Chairman of the Board of Directors, Consignment Deposits and Loans Fund, the Executive Vice President of Investment Strategies, Zotos Financial Incorporated, the MBI Director of School of Law and Economics, Aristotle University. Also, he has been certified financial analyst and consultant with Merrill Lynch Europe, a management consultant with Deloitte & Touche, Athens office, a system and cell engineer with Digital Corporation, and the IT specialist with the Office of Joint Chiefs of Staff of Hellenic Armed Forces in Greece. Professor Polimenis is currently the Vice-Rector of Research and Innovation with the State Fiscal Institute in Tashkent, Uzbekistan. In the past, he has been a faculty with Anderson Graduate School of Management, University of California, Professor of Financial Management at Neapolis University of Cyprus, Associate Professor of Financial Management with the Business Division of Pepperdine University, Malibu, California, a Professor of Financial Management with the Webster University in Vienna, and Tenure Professor with Business Division of Aristotle University in Greece. This is very extensive biography, and we really look forward to your presentation. Today, Dr. Polimenis will talk about financial tech and the financial markets modern landscape. Dr. Polimenis, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pesic. Let me try to share my screen and welcome everybody before I start. I don't know if I have the right to share my screen. Okay, I do. So let's get started. So I'm going to talk, as we said, we're going to talk about FinTech and the modern financial market landscape. What am I going to try to do? Basically, what I'm going to try to accomplish here is what are the learning objectives, so to speak. Basically, we're going to give a 5-minute introduction to blockchain technology. Then we're going to switch into traditional market operations to see how they used to operate, the mechanics of futures markets. And then we're going to transition to so-called decentralized exchange operation, which is the modern emerging paradigm. And then we're going to finish with a little bit more technical note on so-called automated market making. Now, again, this is going to be due to time limitation and diverse audience background. It's going to be a very high flight. So that's why I have this picture there of a plane flying at 30,000 feet. So we're going to be flying at 30,000 feet. Some of the details will not be immediately clear, but I'm going to try my best to basically show you the big picture, so to speak. Okay, so before we get going, what exactly is decentralized finance or DeFi, and why do we need it? Well, the reality is some people may say, well, look, I mean, we know there is already a lot of digitization, a lot of IT used by banks, by brokers, by exchanges. So why do we need any extra new technology? Well, the reality is the current system has not changed much, even though there is technology being used by banks and brokers and exchanges. The fundamental operation of the system has not changed much. Okay, so we still pay 1 to 3% credit card fee. We still have saving rates which are basically near zero or even negative when you take into consideration the cost of maintaining a bank account. At the same time, borrowing rates are quite high. The transfer of money is expensive and slow. It takes 1 to 3 days to basically just transfer the ownership of stocks if you buy stocks of any company. And more importantly, currently there is 1.5 to 2 billion totally unbanked people with zero access to any financial service whatsoever. And many more billion people who are marginally banked, which is basically a very, very limited access to any financial service and also very expensive one. At the same time, during the financial crisis, what we saw, I mean, I'm talking about the 2008-2009 financial crisis, what we saw is that the same institutions that were the epicenter of the crisis had to be bailed out. The basic reason being that they were too big to fail. Now, if we shift gear, what is decentralized finance? In decentralized finance, peers interact via algorithms, what we call smart contracts. So they interact together without any middleman, any middle institution. So by taking out a middleman, the hope is that the fees will be lowered, transaction costs will be lowered, the efficiency of the system will go higher, the transparency, and so on and so forth. So the fundamental technology to achieve all of that is so-called blockchain technology. So let us try to see what exactly is blockchain. It's going to be a 5-minute introduction. 3 things, basically. Blockchain is a way to register information. It's nothing more than that. But it has 3 attributes. It's decentralized, it's distributed, it's immutable. Decentralized means basically that anybody who wants to transact on a blockchain can transact. Nobody can stop you from transacting on a blockchain as long as you have the funds and you're willing to follow the consensus, the rules of the game, so to speak. Secondly, it's distributed. Distributed means that everybody, or at least anybody who wants to, can have a copy of the entire system. So they can take their time to basically look at the system and see if everything is okay, if all the transactions are verifiable and everything has been okay. Finally, it's immutable, meaning that whatever you get to write on the blockchain, you write once, you can read many times, but you only write once, meaning that once something is written, once a transaction gets verified on the blockchain, there is no way you can delete, you can renege on it. It's going to stay there for eternity. So virtually anything of any value can be tracked and traded on a blockchain network, thus reducing the risk and cutting the costs for all involved. So blockchain effectively is ideal for delivering information because it provides immediate and completely transparent, immutable information that can also be distributed and can be accessed by any network member. And if you take into consideration that business runs on information, you can immediately see that basically the faster information is processed, the more accurate it is, and this is the better. Now, this is probably one of the more technical slides of my presentation. We're going to try to understand in 5 minutes how exactly blockchain works. Don't worry, we're not going to see any equations, any math. There is some math, but it's underlying, it's hidden underneath, under the hood, and you don't really need to know it to understand the business fundamentals of a blockchain, which is what we're going to talk about now. So the basic way of understanding the blockchain is think about it as a notebook where pages can be added. Every page of that notebook we call a block. That's why we say a blockchain. It's a chain of blocks. It's a notebook. Now, pages in this notebook are added not by everybody, but by miners who compete to verify transactions, because that's the way they earn fees. We have the rules of the game, which we call proof of work consensus mechanism or protocol. And under that rule, Bitcoin is rewarded for creating a new block. But the question is who gets to add the new block? Not everybody. The way to think about it is you know these scratch-off lotteries, right? Where you scratch off a ticket and see immediately if you have won or not. Well, think of it like that. You basically, the consensus protocol is that whoever scratches off the next winning ticket gets to add the next page to the blockchain and gets the reward. So clearly, if you are a miner, you want to scratch tickets as fast as possible so that you have the highest chances of verifying the next block. And we measure your ability to do that fast by your hash rate. Hash rate is a measure of the computational capacity that you have for mining. So now we know exactly what blockchain, how it works. Let's try now to remember, to refresh our brains about traditional markets, because we're going to need that so that we can later talk about how blockchain can help us modernize traditional markets. So what is the most basic traditional market operation is basically so-called forward contract. This is kind of the historical way, the beginning of modern financial markets, one may say, back in the beginning of the 20th century. It's a forward transaction. You have two parties who agree on a price, a time, an exact quantity and quality, and delivery method and location for a physical commodity. Let's say oil, since oil is now interesting with the geopolitics of the day. Let's talk about oil. So we agree, one party agrees to buy, the other agrees to sell. So it's a commitment today on a future transaction for the future. So forwards, the problem with forwards though, people and exchanges really realized quite fast that forwards are kind of custom made. They can be tailored to meet specific requirements, which is fine if you have the capacity of doing so, but it's expensive and has a lot of complexity for small guys, for small players. And also means that forward transactions can only be traded over the counter, as we say, not in an exchange, but only over the counter, over the phone, let's say. When exchanges realized that, they thought about it and they said, okay, how if we standardize this thing? What can we do to standardize forward contract? So they came up with futures contract, which is the distant cousin of forward contract, which is nothing but a standardized forward, basically. If you think about forward contract as the French restaurant with the cigar and the expensive food, futures contract is the McDonald's of trading, let's say. And exactly like ordering at a fast food, you have a limited menu and you have to choose in that limited menu. Same way with futures contract, you don't get to customize, you have to trade with whatever is there offered by an exchange, by an organized exchange. So an organized exchange basically has done the hard work by specifying the agreement, the asset, the contract size, and the delivery, and so on and so forth. Now, by doing so, they've limited the menu, but at the same time have increased dramatically the potential pool of players, because everybody can play this game now. So this is what we call contractual simplicity. It's very easy for anybody to play. You don't need to have an engineer on your office. You don't need to have a lawyer. You can just play the game. As a matter of fact, most people who buy and sell futures, they don't really know much about the delivery. Okay, so the critical factor for the success of the future has been that it was easy to enter and exit a futures contract. A contract actually is usually referred to by its delivery month. So there's a month. So we're talking about October oil, we're talking about December orange juice, and so on and so forth. Contracts are bought and sold many, many times before delivery because traders don't really wait for delivery. They close out the position. Very few contracts actually ever reach delivery. It's so unusual that most traders don't even know how it works. The underlying bet is either positive or negative. So you either bet that the price is going to go up, or you bet the price is going to go down. And closing the position is as simple as just entering an opposite trade. So if, for example, you bought 5 July oil futures in May, you don't have to wait until July delivery. On June, you may go ahead and sell those 5 futures, thus closing the position and having a net zero position. Okay, so now we know the instruments, which is a futures contract. Now let's talk about market operations. Why market, where were market operations in the end of 20th century, and where we want to take them now with the use of blockchain technology. Well, you see here, I have an image from a movie, a famous movie back in '83. Now, some of you, you're very young students, so many of you have not seen the movie, even though I'd advise you to see it. It's a very funny movie actually, besides its financial kind of interest. This is a key scene in Trading Places by Paramount Pictures, starring Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy. The basic idea here, you have a trading floor, and you can see how chaotic it can be, right? Everybody is shouting and screaming. It's so-called open outcry system, where you have traders basically pushing each other on the floor and using vocal cues and hand signals to basically trade. Very difficult job, very chaotic. Now, in the particular movie, what is happening is the dukes, the bad guys in the movie, they buy frozen concentrated orange juice contract because they think the price is going to go up, while at the same time, Valentine and Winthrop, the Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy here, they short sell the contract at the inflated price, and following a broadcast of the actual crop report, the prediction of a normal harvest, the price plummets, and thus our friends Valentine and Winthrop here can buy at the lower price now, thus fulfilling the contract. Basically, they do the opposite trade, as we said in the previous slide, and thus they're closing their position at a huge gain. Okay, so this is the image of the traditional trading floor back by the end of 20th century. Okay, of course, as I said in the beginning of my talk, the exchanges have automated a lot. So a lot of that activity now has gone into computer systems. So now exchanges are centralized, as we say, meaning that they have central powerful computer that facilitates trading. They maintain so-called limit order book, which is basically a collection of buy and sell orders, and aggregate all of those orders from all over the world to match and execute orders. Thus, they achieve high speed and cost efficiency of processing transactions in a single point of authority. And that is a very convenient venue for traders. The problem with a centralized exchange, though, it is internalizing operations, which means there is a certain degree of a lack of transparency. They also hold custody of user assets, which means that they can be potentially lucrative target for cyber attack. And it's also, for whoever cares about it, an easy target for government censorship, exactly because they hold custodial asset allows regulator to freeze or seize user funds. Okay, so the idea now of coming back to today is how can we use the blockchain technology to decentralize an exchange, to make an exchange not central. So we have what is called now decentralized exchanges, or DEX, which is basically an app based on so-called automated market making. It's an automated market making system. It doesn't need anymore a central authority to verify trades and execute trades. Trades are basically executed immediately, instantaneously. Instead of manually, you have now traders who basically execute trades themselves immediately by acting via so-called liquidity pool. Okay, so the central concept here is so-called liquidity pool. We'll see now how it works. Okay, so we have liquidity pool, and we also have liquidity providers who are other traders who want to earn income by providing liquidity to the pool. Okay, so this is the central idea of a decentralized exchange, liquidity pool, automated market making. Let's try to understand now how exactly that works. Okay, the basic idea is you have the so-called smart contract, which is an algorithm which is programmed to enable liquidity. Underneath, it uses mathematics to discover prices and allow anyone to become so-called liquidity provider, an LP. For example, one of the most well-known decentralized exchanges now is Uniswap protocol, which we will see in the next slide, how it works. Remember that equation, that's the only equation you're going to see today. X times Y is equal to K, K being a constant, okay? So next slide, we will explain exactly what that means. So that's the protocol of Uniswap. The basic idea of that protocol is that regardless of the changes in the value of the two assets, you have two assets, okay? A and B. One could be a cryptocurrency, the other could be dollars, or it could be two currencies, euros and dollars, or it could be bananas and dollars. It doesn't really matter. Anything against some currency. So you have two things, A and B, and the product of the quantity has to always be constant, K. Okay, so the liquidity providers, as I said before, will receive tokens based on the share of the liquidity of the pool that they generated, and these tokens will receive transaction fees. So that's why liquidity providers basically participate in this game. So without any more time, let's get into how exactly this thing works mathematically, let's say, okay? Again, don't worry about the mathematics because we will fly high. So here, what we see is basically the graph of Uniswap system price discovery. So we say price discovery on AMM, an automated market maker. Here, for simplicity, I fix K to be 12. What K12 means is that the product of the two things that you trade against has always been 12, will always be 12. So let's say initially you have a cryptocurrency, Ethereum here, ETH, you have 4 Ethereums, and you have $3. That's back in the days when Ethereum was around $1. Now, of course, Ethereum is now around $3,000. But anyway, to make it easy, I decided to use very low price to kind of make it, we don't want to see too many zeros here, okay? So imagine this Ethereum back in the early days when Ethereum was approximately $1 price. So you have 4 Ethereums and $3, okay? 4 by 3, you multiply, that gives you 12. Okay, now, the way you see this graph, as you go down to the graph, as you go down here, you have low pricing for Ethereum. As you go up in the graph, you have high pricing for Ethereum, okay? It's very intuitive. You go up, high price, you go down, low price. Now, what is the current price? The current price, the way it is you divide the number of dollars by the number of Ethereums, 3 by 4, that will give you a price of $0.75 per Ethereum. So the price of Ethereum here is 0.75. Now, you see I'm using the word DAI. DAI, think of it like dollar. It's a so-called stable currency. We don't have much time to talk about it, but think of it as dollar. It doesn't really make any difference, okay? So now let us imagine that someone wants to bring one more Ethereum. So someone wants to interact with this automated market making by selling an Ethereum to this machine, to this smart contract. Let's see what they're going to get. Now, if they're going to bring one more Ethereum, what's going to happen? You're going to have from 4 Ethereums, you're going to go to 5 Ethereums. You're going to move to the right. So you're going to drop on that graph from this point down to that point, okay? And if you make the division of 12 by, since you have 5 Ethereums, now you divide 12 by 5, you're going to get 2.40, meaning that this point system, this system here, this point here is 240. So now the pool will have to have 5 Ethereums and $2.40 for the product to be constant, which means that the person, the seller, the seller who brought the Ethereum to the pool will be able to take $0.60 from the pool to keep the product constant. So the smart contract is going to give him $0.60. That's the price at which they bought one Ethereum, sorry, at which they sold one. They sold, right? That's why Ethereum went from 4 to 5, because they sold $1, an Ethereum, to the pool. So they got $0.60. Okay, so the critical thing to understand here is they didn't get 0.75, they got 0.60. Why did they get less than that? We said initially price was 0.75, yes. But remember that anytime you buy or sell something, you impact the value also, right? If I sell a lot of cars, price of a car is going to go down. If I buy a lot of bananas, the price of the banana is going to go up. So the same thing has to happen here. If I'm selling Ethereum, price of Ethereum is going to go down. That's why he's going to get 0.60 instead of 0.75. Let us see the opposite. Let's see the operation where someone wants to buy an Ethereum from the pool. What's going to happen is by buying Ethereum, by withdrawing an Ethereum from the pool, they're going to push the pool from 4 Ethereums to 3 Ethereums, okay? They're going to push the pool from 4 to 3 to the left. And by pushing it to the left, what is the number that when multiplied by 3 is equal to 12, that's going to be 4, right? Which means that the number of dollars has to go up to 4. So how is that going to happen? Well, I'm withdrawing an Ethereum and I submit $1 to the pool. That's the only way the smart contract is going to allow me to transact with the pool. Remember, this is all programmatic. It's all algorithmic. No human intervenes. It's a smart contract, meaning that it's an algorithm. So the only way for me as an Ethereum buyer to interact with this smart contract is if I satisfy its protocol, its logic. And its logic is that if you want to pull, if we want to withdraw an Ethereum, you have to give me $1, because that's the only way I can keep my multiplier constant at 12. Okay, so I'm going to give the Ethereum, I'm going to get the dollar, and at the same time, I'm going to push the system from that low price to this high price, which if you divide 4 by 3 is actually going to be 1.33. So that's interesting. So you have 3 prices actually. I know it's getting confusing, but you have to think about it, it'll come clear to you. You have one initial price was 0.75. I mean, someone may ask, okay, what is the value of that initial price? You told us this 0.75, since it's never, no one gets this price. Well, not necessarily so. This is so-called marginal price. So if you were to recover an infinitesimally small amount of Ethereum, you're going to get 0.75 because you're going to move along that tangent. But because you don't get an infinitesimally small amount of Ethereum, you don't get 0.75, you impact the price and you're pushing it to 133. But your price is not going to be 133, it's going to be 1, because you're going to be getting, you're going to be moving along that curve, and you're going to be getting that 1 Ethereum. Initially, the early parts of that order are going to be executed at lower prices, around 0.75, 0.80, 0.90, 1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So you're going to get prices all along that curve, with the average price of your execution being $1 per Ethereum. Okay, I know it sounds confusing, but again, this is a 5-minute introduction to automated market making, so we had to run a little faster. So I want to give some time for questions. Let me conclude here by saying, what did you learn today? Basically, we learned what exactly blockchain is, how it works. It's a decentralized, distributed, immutable way of recording information and financial transactions. Then we refreshed our brains about basics of 20th century trading, and finally discussed how modern decentralized finance can differ from centralized exchange, and discussed in some detail the automated market making mechanism. So I'm ready for questions if there is any.
Thank you, Professor. We've got a few people who've been here from the very start. So at this point, if you raise your hand or show a little signal on beside yourself, we can take your question. It kind of looks like Shuhrat Saidbayev has a question. Is that correct, Shuhrat?
Yes, it is.
All right, please go ahead. Maybe you could turn your camera on if that's possible.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank you for your presentation and lecture. And secondly, I want to ask you a question about why shouldn't we use a cryptocurrency instead of regular currency?
The question is, why should we use cryptos, or why we should not?
Why shouldn't we use cryptos if it's safer, cheaper and quicker than usual currency like yuan, dollar, and others?
Well, I'm not so sure. I'm not sure that they are safer. Cryptocurrencies are one of the many applications of, actually, one of the things that that's a very good question, actually, because, you know, there is a bit of a confusion right now in terms of Bitcoin and blockchain. And some people think it's the same. Whenever we talk about Bitcoin, we talk about blockchain. In reality, blockchain, what I try to convey in that lecture is that blockchain is a much more general technology. It's a tool that can be used in many, many industries. Basically, in any industry where you need information and you need to be able to transact on a transparent and decentralized fashion, you can use blockchain. So, for example, this paradigm of automated market making is not related to cryptocurrencies. You can actually trade bananas. You can trade dollars with euros. You can trade anything via an automated market making system on a decentralized exchange. So it's not necessarily related to cryptos. Now, cryptos is one of the many applications. I know it's the first application. That's why it has been so exciting for many people, the ability to effectively generate totally digital money, because this is what it is. I mean, Bitcoin is the first digital money application that humanity was able to generate. So I'm not trying to say it's not interesting. Actually, it's an extremely smart application. But in my talk, we kind of saw the bigger picture, which is not only cryptocurrency, but also in general, the ability to actually do things via a blockchain application. And an example that I used was the decentralized exchange, the automated market making and decentralized exchange application. So that's kind of an answer to your question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If anybody else has a question, you've got a chance to ask right now.
Webster Polimenis, this is Dr. Besic. Just for the audience in general, and I'm far from being even informed, not knowledgeable about the cryptocurrency and blockchain. How does one start with it? How does one actually acquire a blockchain, purchase a blockchain? What is the place that one can go and purchase a certain amount of blockchains? If I want to do a blockchain tomorrow, where do I go?
Okay, that's a very good question, actually. And there is a lot of confusion also, even from people who think they know a little bit about it, but they don't understand really the following thing. The blockchain is not really something that you can buy or sell. Effectively, think of the blockchain as the rules of a game. We play a game, okay? And that's what we call a consensus protocol. So we agree that this game is going to be played like that. We write down the rules. Anybody who agrees to those rules and they agree to play by those rules, to be bound by those rules, they become part of the game automatically. Nobody can stop you. No central bank, no authority can come and tell you, no, you're not going to be playing. As long as you have access to internet, you can play the game. There is one more fundamental point, though. Let's say I am a malicious guy and I would like to twist the game, to destroy the game. For whatever reason, I think there is money to be made, or I would like to make some extra money by stealing some Bitcoin, whatever. Can I do it? Can I twist the rules? Because if there is no one to enforce the game, the question is, how are those rules being enforced? How do we know that we don't change the rules of the game? And the answer is that the system is robust by the very way the protocol works, because it's in no one's interest to destroy the game, because now there is value in that game. And if we destroy the protocol, then all of that value is going to be lost. So for anybody, any malicious user who would like to destroy that game, to play outside the rules of the game, they would have to have more computing power than all of us together. And that makes it almost impossible. So someone would have to come from other planet or something to have more computing power. I talked a little bit about the hash rate. So they would have to have more hash rate, more computing power than all of us together. And that a testament to that robustness, if you want, is that it's now operating for 13 years. I mean, Bitcoin is operating for 13 years. It's a $1 trillion operation. The market capitalization of Bitcoin today is approximately 1 trillion. And nobody has been able to do anything with the protocol. The protocol has been there working day 24/7, literally 20. There is nothing. There is not a single minute the protocol is not working. There is no holidays, no weekends, nothing. So 13 years, $1 trillion is a testament that this works. But what is a blockchain? A blockchain really is everywhere and nowhere. As I said at the beginning, it's a distributed thing, meaning that if I would like to, if I have a big enough computer and I would like to, I could actually download the entire blockchain to my computer and take my time and read through it from block 0 back in 2nd of January of 2009, I believe, or whatever, up to today, all blocks. I can have them all pages of that notebook and read each page for as long as I want. Nobody can stop me from doing it. Now, do I do it? No, not in reality. Very few nodes in the network will actually have the entire blockchain locally, but it doesn't matter. As long as I know I can do it, I can verify for myself that's transparent enough. I don't know if I answered that. It's kind of a difficult question, but
if I download the entire blockchain on my computer, what is the content of that download?
it's going to be all the blocks. Because
blocks
okay, that's a good question. That's a good question. Why do we call it blockchain? The reason is the following. Remember, I told you that it's like one page. Every block is a new page, right? There is one more trick which I didn't tell you. When we make a new page, we take a very good photo of the previous page, and we put a small, picture of that previous page on the new page. And that's done cryptographically. Why do we do that? We do it so that these pages are in order. So nobody can come in and put a new page where it didn't belong. We want to make sure that this is a chain with an exact sequence. We don't want to have anybody coming in and putting a page where it doesn't belong. So every page links back to previous page. That's why we call it a blockchain. Now, if you wanted to download the entire blockchain, you can do. You will download, I don't know how many gigabytes it is, or terabytes. I don't know, to be honest. You can actually look this. There is huge information on it's exactly because it's so transparent. You can look at it and everything is on the internet. You can find exactly the size of the blockchain, what block we are right now at, how many gigabytes, and so on and so forth. But you can download the whole thing. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So there's a question that someone wrote in the chat. Akbarkhun Izatulayev, did you want to ask in person or shall I read it? Okay.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for the presentation. I had several questions, but I want to start from the beginning. Do you have experience on blockchain not only for the research but in practice? I mean here, did you have any type of a coin that you used to share with someone? I don't mean only like Bitcoin. There are thousands of coins, right?
Yes.
And did you have any experience? Is it like a safe chain that everybody can use in the practice? Because I also had some knowledge of blockchain. It's like a warehouse where you can hide the information of the person who is sending the money from one side to another side. It's like shows only the numbers in the platform. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, the answer is, of course, I do have experience. I mean, I do have myself some. It's very easy. On your phone, you can do everything on your phone. I mean, I have you open the so-called wallet, and you can trade with people. So it's it's very easy for anybody who knows how to use smartphone and QR code. You can very easily transfer money from one to another by just generating a QR code, and then the other person can grab the QR code with his phone. Automatically, they have your address, which is usually that long, string of digits. So, and you can easily transfer money or receive money. Of course, if I understand what you're talking about, there is a lot of scammers around. Yes, absolutely. I mean, every time you have a new technology, there's going to be people who are going to try to play games. So I would advise anybody who before they do anything, just make sure you know exactly what you're doing. Talk to someone who knows, because the reality is that yes, there is a level of difficulty, technicality which has gone down dramatically, by the way. I mean, if you were to do these things like 3 years ago, it'd be much, much more difficult than it is today. I mean, the interaction with the blockchain is much simpler today. But nevertheless, there is a lot of malicious games played around. Of course, whenever you talk about money, you have to be careful. That's the bottom line. So yes, it's not difficult to do it, but I would advise anybody to have someone who knows how to do something like that, to show them a little bit before they try it on their own.
Yes, thank you very much.
Does anybody else have a question for Professor Polimenis? If not, I was wondering if I could ask you a question in our remaining time.
Absolutely.
So it's when you read the news, because this has become almost a mainstream kind of topic, when you read the news, once in a while you hear something about Bitcoin value dropping because Elon Musk tweeted something. Or recently when there was unrest in Kazakhstan, where there's a lot of Bitcoin crypto mining, because of the fact that for a few days there was no electricity, there was no way to mine, and there was no internet, the value of Bitcoin also decreased dramatically. So my question is, how does that work exactly? Does it work kind of the same way as with any stock market, like traditional stock market, or is there a nuance there as well?
That's a very good question. It works exactly like any stock market, with only one difference: it is extremely volatile right now, as you said. I mean, the volatility is very strong, and we have to separate two things. One thing is the technology, the underlying technology, which I try to, I hope, in that limited talk, to convey a little bit about. The underlying technology is very exciting. Don't get me wrong. Everybody is excited because there's a lot of new things. And for many people, myself included, we believe this is the future of finance. But having said that, at the same time, as with any new technology, there is huge risks involved. There is huge volatility. Bitcoin price is, and Bitcoin is one of the more conservative, by the way. I mean, there is other so-called altcoins which are going up and down like totally crazy. So, yes, it's an exciting technology, but that doesn't mean that it's without any risk. I mean, it has huge risk, and anybody who puts any money into this, invests in this technology, they need to basically think of it as this most volatile stocks that you would buy. It's very volatile, and I would advise to, if you do anything, just put a very small fraction of your money and be ready to sustain losses. Yes, there is a possibility to make money, but also you should be ready to sustain a lot of losses, because really it's a very new area, and not only technologically, but also there is a lot of risk, which is the legal aspect, because most countries have not decided yet how they're going to deal with cryptocurrencies and blockchain applications. So yes, there is huge opportunity, but there is huge risk also. Part of the risk is technological, part of the risk is legal. One last thing I would like to basically mention is, it reminds me a lot, and that's not me saying it, many people have said that, it reminds me a lot of the beginning of internet era, when you had internet time back in the 90s, early 90s, and stock market was going up and down like crazy, and you had many companies who became internet companies, so-called .coms, and everybody would just buy .com company. Why? Because it was a .com. Now we know most of those .coms disappeared and people lost all their money. Now, does that mean that internet was not a valid technology and was not something that's going to change the economy and business as we know it? Of course not. I mean, we know internet was a dramatically significant technological quantum leap for business, and it's here to stay, but doesn't mean that you don't get volatility in the stock market. So you always have to keep that in mind. I mean, anytime you have such a huge technological gap, jump, leap, you're going to get a lot of opportunities, but also a lot of people are going to lose money. That's always going together, I think.
Thank you for the answer. It looks like everyone who has come in doesn't have any questions remaining. I'm sure they've got a lot to kind of think about. Dr. Pesic, would you like to close the talk?
Yes, it was really a pleasure to listen to the exciting technology that's coming up as the future of finance and many other things. I personally was just reading here and there. We didn't have enough time to really get into it, and I really was happy to have you as a guest speaker today. We look forward to our collaboration in the future, and I hope that our students and the guests learn something about blockchain and Bitcoin, and that they'll probably use it in their studies and in their work. So greetings to all. We're going to be back hopefully soon on campus with the new topics and new themes, and that the world is becoming a complex place. I think Webster University Tashkent and Webster University in St. Louis are well equipped to bring you the best knowledge and information that one can really use for learning, studying, and professional career. I thank again Professor Polimenis.
Thanks for having me here also, and thanks for the invitation, Dr. Pesic. And I would like to also extend my greetings to, and thank you, Malika, for organizing this. And I would like to also say to the students that you are lucky to be part of Webster family. I used to be also a member of Webster family in Europe. And I think it's a great place in those turbulent but also exciting times, as Dr. Pesic said. So it's a good place for you to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.